Hey everyone, welcome back to FPL Fran. Today's video is going to be my GW16 team selection as we look ahead to, once again, a lot of proposed injuries for a couple players. It seems like Son is contentious, Porro is contentious, we know Mbumo is out when we just look at quickly my team. So we're reviewing Game Week 15. Obviously, it was actually a pretty good week. We got a green arrow, we're top 31k, top 30k, whatever you say, and ultimately the transfers seemed to go our way. Dubravka was fortunate, right? Because our Areola turned out to have an injury, once again, undisclosed. We know this happens very often now in press conferences, but we got at least some points from a goalkeeper. And ultimately, I sort of look at these weeks now where I've gone with a wild card and somehow left Pickford and he's just gotten clean sheets, seemingly left and right, after basically not getting a single clean sheet for 7 weeks straight. But that's okay. We move on. And in terms of the rest of my team, we saw Tsimikas and Darwin benches, something that I'm not really too upset about because we knew probably some benches could happen. And right now, we have the opportunity to have Tsimikas and Darwin most likely starting versus Crystal Palace, which I think is fantastic, even though it's an away game. And ultimately, very happy to, let's say, own potentially 80 minutes of Darwin Nunez or Tsimikas for another 90 minutes. So that for me is very positive for the team. And the question, of course, is looking at the team, of course, what do we do with Arsenal defense? What do we do with Chelsea defense, for example? I think in terms of Chelsea defense, we don't need to rush our guns in terms of investing into them. If anything, they've actually looked worse and worse as a defensive team. So I would actually just wait for that Sheffield United fixture if you're actually looking to bring in a Chelsea defender. However, for someone like Pedro Porro, the only concern, obviously, is the potential asterisks around him. He might have an injury, which apparently was him maybe limping after the game. I don't think it's a huge deal. Hopefully, Pedro Porro is fit. I think he's essential to this Tottenham team. And I mean essential, in the truest sense of the word, because he is great at set piece creating, where Madison obviously is out, and they need someone like that. And honestly, in open play, you can watch him as well. He's creating so many chances as well in the box. The only problem, I suppose, is maybe that team doesn't necessarily have a true, for example, center forward target, someone to actually head the ball in. And you can see, for example, Richarlison himself had a great chance within that game himself, but didn't take it. So that is a concern, but not really a huge concern. As far as I do think Pedro Porro should play. Son, of course, there seems to be a larger concern with him. A lot of, for example, images on social media being shared about him, some videos as well. I think hopefully he's going to be fine. I've seen many instances where Son took, for example, contact with someone else, an opposing player, and was in very, very aggravated pain. And he still has been able to play, after 2 days rest, after 3 days rest. I'm hoping this is one of those instances. As far as Mbumo, we know he's out for a few weeks. This is the true confirmation that we have. And I think I have already exercised the transfer. So an early transfer has been done. A sin has been committed. But in this instance, for a player who obviously played today, and for a player that I'm very happy to bring back into the team that I was pretty upset about leaving. And I'm sure a couple of people who've been watching the videos will know who it is already, but we will roll on to the team selection right now and debut the Game Week 16 team selection. As far as the defense, we're going to be fielding Dubravka again. I'm just expecting that Areola's off the bench. Also, generally speaking, I don't think there's much between, let's say, Areola and Dubravka. I think, obviously, fixture-wise, you have to say that Areola's fixture is better. But here, I'll probably not play with any sort of risks here. I'll just go with Dubravka to start. Pedro Porro is going to also feature as well, expecting that he's going to play at home versus Newcastle. This Newcastle team hasn't looked particularly good as of late, and particularly away from home. I think the drastic sort of results that Newcastle have had, you can see that the main driver really is whether they play away from home or at home. That doesn't mean that Newcastle assets are bad. And actually, of course, I'm very happy to bring in Newcastle assets because they're a great team. But it just means that in opportunities like this, when we have a very good attacker in Pedro Porro, not too, for example, scared about, for example, his opportunities to, let's say, do well on the attacking point of view. And that's why we have Pedro Porro. He's a very good attacking player. We know this Tottenham team are pretty awful. But, for example, when I compare, let's say, to some of the other players in my team, like a Colwill, the issue, I suppose, is the reason why he's not here, for example, is even though he's a fullback, attacking quality is drastically different. And Chelsea's defense look, just about really as bad as Spurs. So who's to say, for example, that it doesn't make sense to play Porro? I think Porro makes a lot of sense. Gabriel will be played reluctantly this week. Aston Villa looked exquisite versus Man City. And honestly, a huge credit to Unai Emery and the performance that he was able to get out of his side. And honestly, as of late, Aston Villa have been incredible. Mostly, of course, at home. We saw, for example, some calamitous results at the start. For example, the battering versus Newcastle. But this happens, and ultimately they are there in thereabouts right now, and they're sort of inserting themselves into the title race. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think the reality is Aston Villa is a great team, and a lot of our teams and our players this week have some pretty bad fixtures, and we have to sort of just take that on the chin. Gabriel's one of those choices where I have to make a 50-50 with him and Colwell, and as a result, I will be playing Gabriel in this instance here, just because I don't have too much confidence in the Chelsea team. I think the Everton team is actually very, very good. We've been talking about that all season, and the expectations have continued to build, and Everton have actually finally delivered within the last 2 games as well. As far as Tsimikas, as I said, very, very happy for the opportunity to start him. I really struggle to see Joe Gomez maybe starting 2 games in a row, so I really think Tsimikas will start here. Not too concerned about Crystal Palace's attacking quality. I'm not saying this is a guaranteed clean sheet for Liverpool, but I'm definitely going to be very scared once again of Trent. Now, Trent has gotten 40 points in 4 game weeks. I don't think I suddenly need to break apart my team for Trent, because we know that this is very unsustainable, right? Ultimately, Trent has probably amassed something like 1.6, 1.7 expected goals involvement, and he's gotten 4 assists. He's gotten 2 assists and 2 goals in that time, and also, some clean sheets as well. And it's not like this Liverpool team is absolutely airtight. There were chances, for example, even for Sheffield United to break through. For example, there was a key Joe Gomez mistake as well in that game. Archer, for example, had a great chance to sort of take it for himself to score, but those sort of things happen. Sheffield United also looked a little bit better as a side as well, although I really don't think one sample size is enough to say that there's a true new manager bounce here. In terms of the midfield, we're also looking at an instance where we've got Salah, Saka, Son, Palmer, and now a new recruit in Gordon. Very happy to bring Gordon back in the team. I think it's a terrible fixture to bring Gordon back, but I was thinking about Foden. I was also thinking about Gordon, but I just think that if I bring a transfer for Foden, the issue with my team as it stands, with the amount of injuries that could potentially crop up for these players who are playing effectively 3 games within 1 week's time, is I can't sustain another transfer. And I think Foden would be a transfer out immediately on game week 18 for another player. I don't know the serious sort of or the severity of the Son injury, if it is an injury at all. I don't know if Porro's injured, and who knows, there could be more injuries that prop up, and we know that's what happens when footballers play too many games of football, and this is the reality with this stage of the season. So I'd rather bring in someone like Gordon, who was fine, played 90 minutes once again, and looked okay. Barnes was not on the bench. Newcastle, if you have a look at their bench depth right now, it is horrific. I'm struggling to see instances where Gordon, who's actually one of the most fit players in the team, which Eddie Howe has confirmed, time and time again, will lose out in minutes here. And I think I'm going to have to take it on the chin that he's going to play versus Tottenham away. However, we know the Tottenham team, even if they're playing at home, aren't a particularly good defense. If anything, they probably created West Ham's chances, today. And I don't think West Ham were some miraculous team in the second half that sort of piled on crazy amounts of pressure for Spurs. This is not exactly the case at all. However, West Ham's chances were amazing, but those chances were mostly created by sort of individual mistakes from Spurs players. One, I think, really from a lucky rebound, but you can argue that Bowen's in a good position. And the second one, purely coming down to, first of all, mistakes from Udogie, and also second of all, a mistake from Vicario, who basically lays it onto Ward-Prowse. So, in that instance, I'm going to take Gordon and hope that, of course, he does okay versus Tottenham, but not expecting anything here. Just sort of thinking about, in the long-term strategy with my team, if Mbeumo's out, who's the forward or the midfielder that I really want the most? Gordon gives me that opportunity to move into someone like that. It completely frees up my cash. I will have 2.0 in the bank as a result of this. I will have complete flexibility to move into Watkins from Darwin in the future, and also do another upgrade sort of move in the future as well. So I like the flexibility that Gordon brings. I don't think I need to stretch towards Bowen, for example. I don't think I need to go into Sterling, who has 4 yellow cards, and I don't think I need to go into Foden, who unfortunately has 2 great fixtures, but will bring in some huge asterisks for my team in a situation where I don't have as many free transfers as other people. I have not been rolling my free transfers because I felt, a little bit ahead of the curve. Wanted to use my 2 free transfers a couple of weeks ago, and I've done so. So to sort of make sure that my team is sort of airtight for the future, I've gone for Gordon. As far as Son, Saka, Salah, very happy with them. Same with Palmer as well. These are all penalty takers, all players that hopefully you can play. Obviously, Son has an asterisk, but you play him expecting for him to be fine. Worst case scenario, obviously, I've got Archer on the bench, so not really too concerned. And then in the forward positions, I've got Darwin and Haaland. I spoke about how previously I had the issue with Darwin in my team, that probably he was going to be bench versus Sheffield United, but we could probably expect for something off the bench as well, just because of how poor Sheffield United are. Not that for whatever reason Darwin is better off the bench. I think that's completely untrue. Whatever you can get from Darwin, in my opinion, the more minutes, the more chances you'll have Darwin to create chaos, whether he scores goals, whether he doesn't, whether he creates goals or he doesn't. I just think for good fixtures, Darwin is a nice asset to have. Watkins is still facing versus Arsenal, so that's going to be the only solace that I have, knowing that I don't have Watkins right now, and we'll keep it as such. And actually, after that, in the next week, if, let's say, Darwin gets rested for the European fixture again, him actually starting versus Man United is something that I'm absolutely happy to keep him for, and I'll be moving back into Watkins on game week 8 instead, game week 18 instead, sorry, and rolling instead in game week 17. So that's the transfer plans just in general. In terms of captaincies this week, I think it's an interesting topic, obviously. Personally, I think the captaincy is very, very clearly on Haaland. I would have loved to have, for example, 3 City players this week, maybe 2 City players this week, but I just don't see the need to, for example, hamstring my team in such a way. As I said, I think I have injury concerns. I have concerns as well with, let's say, how strong my team is in game week 18. By only having Haaland in my team, I can pretty much address and create a very, very strong side without Haaland. And Haaland will sit on my bench in game week 18, and I think I'll be in a good position. Dubravka, for me, actually put on a decent performance. I don't think his spot is, for example, in any sort of doubt right now. Concern, obviously, is with Areola and whether he actually is going to be a starting goalkeeper. Because, obviously, in the future, if, let's say, Areola suddenly loses his spot to Fabianski, then obviously he can just immediately come back into the team or get out of the team rather, and I can move into someone like Pickford potentially, or look for someone who actually rotates better, or let's say a keeper from potentially a team that we would expect a little bit more from a fixture point of view, like let's say Raya, maybe when the fixtures ease up for Arsenal, let's say after they face Liverpool. So that's going to be a consideration. Right now, I think I'm very happy with the team structure as it is. 2.0 in the bank for sort of the flexibility to move ahead, particularly around game week 18 when we probably have a lot of plans. And also, there's going to be a lot of intricacies, I think, around Asian Cup and AFCON, around game week 20, that sort of time where we'll be thinking about things like, is KDB back or is he not? Is it time to move into a 3-4-3 and other such things? So thank you guys so much for watching the video. That's going to be my Game Week 16 team selection. If you guys have any thoughts in terms of your transfers, do leave them in the comments below. If you haven't done so far, please feel free to subscribe. 50% of my viewers are still not subscribed, and I would love to, for example, reach the next subscriber goal, which is going to be 30K. Very, very long way away. That is the goal for the short term. Thank you guys so much as well for bringing us to 20K before the end of the year. But once again, it is very appreciated that you guys watch the videos, and thank you guys so much as well, specifically to the members as well, for financially keeping this channel afloat. And take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.